Let's continue talking about the debate, and do so. We're joined by my good friend from Newsmax, New York, host of his own eponymously named show, The Steve Malzberg Show. That, of course, would be Steve Malzberg. We're also pleased to be joined by the former Lieutenant Governor of the great state of New York, Betsy McCaughey, and likewise joining us tonight, the Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaeffer. She is the contributing author of Lean Together. She Skypes in, I believe, tonight from Colorado. If I'm not right about that, I'll get that straight in a second, Sabrina, and we can correct the record on that. Hey, we heard from Kellyanne Conway earlier, concerned about just how Donald Trump will be treated by the media. I want you to hear what Kellyanne had to say about Mr. Trump and, well, actually about both candidates and their debating skills.
He's a natural debater. He's very gifted. I have to say, I've been in politics for 28 years, Mika, and I think Donald Trump has gifts and skills that sometimes escape typical politicians.
No question.
On the other hand, Kellyanne said, you know, Hillary's got some smart people around her. She practices, but this is not exactly her strong suit. Sabrina, what do you say?
Well, look, you know, historically, political scientists will tell you that debates don't have a huge impact on the electorate. What's interesting is that this is a very tight race. And so even a small bump in favorability for Donald Trump could go a long way to helping him out. So I think that there is a little bit more at stake this time around than in traditional debates. And also, this is an election, you know, that we have to recognize is not really like any election we've seen before. So I think that there's still a lot that voters are waiting to hear from both candidates, and this will be the first chance tonight for them to get serious.
Betsy McCaughey, Donald Trump certainly travels to the beat of his own drummer. Unorthodox in the Republican campaign, that was part of his appeal. Do you expect him tonight to stay unpredictable, or will he rein it in a bit, talk more about policy rather than Mrs. Clinton and some personal attributes, and try to look, quote, more presidential?
Well, the reason this race is tightening is that most Americans don't want your typical robotic, scripted politician. Donald Trump shoots from the hip. He's a very experienced, very accomplished person. He's running 185 profitable businesses around the world. He can handle the questions, but people know they're going to get a straight story from him instead of a rehearsed and repetitive and parroted answer the way Mrs. Clinton is accustomed to doing.
Yeah, and I think, JD, if I might, that you know, in my show that just ended, I tried to show everybody, because the Media Research Center put this out and I used it, the real Lester Holt. We hear that he's a Republican. Maybe he's a registered Republican. If he is, I don't know. But I've seen him in action, and I've seen the way he's treated Hillary Clinton. He actually asked if she gets her feelings hurt when people question her honesty. He said when someone stood up in the audience and a young man and asked her about her honesty, he cringed, he told Hillary. And then he takes on Donald Trump and he goes for the jugular. So I think we're in for it. If he does try that, it will work to Donald's advantage.
Well, it's interesting. Again, it reaffirms our suspicions that NBC stands for nobody but Clinton, but we'll see about that. In the meantime, Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus was, I think, trying to put to rest some of the concerns a guy like I have about Mr. Trump and his unorthodox debate prep. Here's what he said last night on the Fox News channel.
The team is very well prepared. The right people are in the room. And I can tell you that Donald Trump's head is in this thing, and he's been consistent, and he's been working hard, and he's got a really good attitude about it. But I can tell you, it's not like he's sitting around wringing his hands nervous. He's pretty calm, cool, and collected.
And we understand that he's talking to a lot of advisors, talking over policy rather than going through a debate. Sabrina, I guess different candidates have different approaches. You think that's going to work for him?
Well, I actually think that that's very important. I think that that word policy has been left out of a lot of sort of Trump's sort of campaign up until now. We hear a lot of sort of flamboyant language, and we hear a lot of, you know, talk about how he's not part of the establishment. But what we haven't heard a lot about is him really diving into some of the really serious, you know, critical policy concerns, both domestically and in terms of our foreign policy. And I think it's important to point out the Pew Research Foundation just released some new numbers today, About a third of voters on both sides are voting for either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton currently because they are not the other person, right? They are voting, in effect, against another candidate. So it's really quite important that someone like Donald Trump says, here are the issues that really matter to me. Here's how I'm going to rein in the progressive state. Here's how I'm going to return control over your healthcare dollars to you. Here's how I'm going to expand educational freedom. Those are things that voters care about, and he has to show that he's done his homework. And I think that that's where tonight could be very effective for him.
Let me follow up with Steve Malzberg, because, Steve, you have seen more than your share of debates. And, well, I know you and Betsy both can kind of have a New York state of mind, so to speak. You know, New York politics is rough and tumble. Hillary succeeded in that state. Donald Trump took a look at running for office in New York, but then went national. To the extent, granted, Hillary is an adopted New Yorker and Trump comes by it naturally. Do you think this may develop into more of a no-holds-barred debate tonight, Steve, or are people going to kind of sit back and be a bit more cautious tonight?
I don't think Donald Trump really wins with the no-holds-barred. He could go for the jugular without being combative. He could say, if she brings up, you know, you said this, you did that, whatever, he could say, really? He said, you know, I was going to invite a woman who says that you threatened her and ruined her life after she said that your husband attacked her. I could have brought the Benghazi parents who say you lied to her, but he has to do it in a toned, you know, in a toned down fashion. I don't think the screaming and the obnoxiousness, which I love, and the people love to an extent, I don't think that's going to resonate here. Oh, he attacked a woman. Look, we know no matter what Donald Trump does, he loses in the media analysis after the debate. On every mainstream network, he lost.
Well, let's go to Betsy to say, since we're not the media, we're Newsmax. When you look at it, Betsy, what do you think he will do to win it tonight? You got about 30 seconds.
Well, frankly, this is a battle, an epic battle between the blabber and the builder. Hillary Clinton makes a living giving speeches, usually for big fees. And for most of her life, that's how she's made a living. Whereas Donald Trump actually does things. He builds big buildings. He runs resorts around the world. He's a very successful manager. And I hope that tonight that he can put on display his managerial abilities, his accomplishments, and she will come off as the blabber. She's always the smartest girl in the class, and she just yaks and yaks and yaks until you want to just clap your hand right over her mouth.
Well, we will have to go there. We would never accuse you guys of blabbing in any way, but time requires us electronically to end the conversation. Betsy and Steve from Newsmax New York and Sabrina Schaeffer checking in via Skype, you have our thanks. Now, again, we're going to be covering this until midnight tonight. We want to know what you think, specifically who won tonight's debate. After it's over, you can tell us who you think won by voting at newsmaxpolls.com. That's newsmaxpolls.com. I believe we have a live look now inside the debate hall from Hofstra University. Yes, there are people showing up, coming in, getting ready. And electronically, two more people will join us, Craig Shirley and Roger Stone, who certainly know a lot about presidential politics, as our pre-debate coverage continues after this.